Hello and welcome to this screencast on skill acquisition, looking at practice. So if we look at the specification, what we've done so far is we've kind of looked at classification of skill, stages of learning, and last week we looked at types of guidance. So the next two lessons is going to be on practice types. So we're going to understand different types of practice that we have to learn the skills that we've done with regards to classification of skill and the stage of learning we're at with regards to that classification of skill, and then we can also discuss the type of guidance within that. So if we're looking at practice types, we've got 8 practice types that are in front of you right now. We're going to concentrate on the first 4. Okay, so we're concentrating on part practice, whole part whole practice, progressive practice. Now, when we're talking about practice and when we're discussing the characteristics and uses of each part of practice, it's really important that we get into our head ability and classification of skill and how we can link these to different types of practice. When we're talking about ability, I'm talking about cognitive, associative and autonomous learners. Classifications of skill, we're thinking of low organisation skills, high organisation skills, complex skills, discrete skills and so on. Because depending on the ability of the learner, depending on the type of skill it is, or the classification of skill, depends on what type of practice we use. For example, for a cognitive learner, learning a high organisational skill, we'll use a different type of practice compared to an autonomous learner learning a low organisation type of skill. So the different classifications of skill and their performance ability does have an impact on the type of practice we are going to choose, and this is your kind of responsibility as a coach to make sure that you are using the correct practice type for the correct learner and the correct skill. Okay, so if we go on to potential exam questions you may have, you could have describe whole practice and provide an example, or describe part practice and provide an example, whole practice and part progressive practice providing examples. So that is one type of question you may get. So it's really important we're able to describe each one and provide an example. You may also get asked to compare the use of part and whole practice. So comparing two of the practices together. Part and whole tend to be the more kind of like ones that are questioned because it's easier to kind of compare part and whole practice. That is something we're going to be looking at in today's lesson, and with regards to the screencast we're mainly focusing on being able to describe, providing examples. So first of all, if we're looking at part practice to begin with, I'll let you look at that picture and think, okay, so part practice, what might this entail? What part practice entails, what part practice is described as, is isolating skills into subroutines, practice and put back into the skill. So isolating skills into subroutines, e.g. the arm action in front crawl. So if ever you've been a swimmer or learned swimming, sometimes your coach may have got you to practice the arm action only without the legs. That is part practice. You are isolating subroutines and practicing them. Whole practice, I'll let you look at those pictures. Okay, so what do we think we mean by whole practice? Whole practice is simply practicing the skill in its entirety. It's really important, entirety is key for this. It's really important we have a different word to describe whole. Practice the skill in its whole, you may not get marks for that. It's really important we can use a different terminology. So what we're going for is entirety. Practicing a skill in its entirety is whole practice, e.g. a golf swing. Okay, so you would use whole practice for a skill such as a golf swing. Then we have whole part whole practice. So again, I'll let you look at that picture. Okay, so what do we mean by whole part whole? What do we think we're going to do? Well, what we're going to do is, again, it's in the title. We're going to practice the skill in its entirety, i.e. whole. Then we're going to isolate and practice weak subroutines and then put them back into the whole skill. For example, you may isolate the ball toss of a tennis serve. So you may just practice it. So first of all, you do the whole entirety skill. You practice tennis serve. Okay, I'm going to isolate my weak subroutines, which is the tossing of the ball. I'm going to practice that. Okay, now I'm going to put it back into the whole skill and do the whole skill together. Then we have progressive part practice. So what I mean by progressive part practice is we're isolating subroutines separately and then progressively chaining them together. Chain is a key word in this definition, okay, or this description. So what we're doing is isolating the subroutines separately, and then we progressively chain them together, and then we finally have the whole skill. So for example, what you might do for a triple jump is isolate the subroutine of running separately, and you practice the run alone, that is it, okay. Then you isolate the hop and you practice the hop on its own, entirely on its own, just the hop. Then you chain the run and the hop together, and you practice the run and the hop together because you've chained it. Then you're going to practice the step on its own, so isolating the step routine. Okay, so now I'm going to chain together the run, the hop and the step. So you practice the run, the hop and the step. And then finally, you're going to isolate the jump and practice the jump separately. Finally, chaining it all together and practicing the run, hop, step and jump. That is progressive part practice. They are the 4 practice types we're going to be looking at in the lesson. They are your key descriptions with examples. We also need to be able to compare, or potentially compare, therefore we need more information with regards to these types of practice. So we're first of all going to look at part practice. So we've looked at what it is, it's isolating skill into subroutines, and we've given an example. Now, a strength for part practice, or the uses, i.e. the type of classification of skill part practice is going to be good for, and the ability of the performer, are going to be low organisation skills. Remember, low organisation skills can easily be split up into subroutines. Part practice is isolating skills into subroutines. So low organisational skills are going to be brilliant for part practice. What else? We're going to have serial skills. Remember, serial skills are several subroutines joined together. So again, it's about subroutines. And then finally, complex skills. Complex skills are those that involve decision making or high levels of decision making, high levels of perceptual load. Therefore, it's really good for part practice to break these down into subroutines. It's good for a cognitive learner as it will increase their confidence. So a cognitive learner who may not necessarily know the full fluidity of a movement and understand the movement, it'd be really good to use part practice for a cognitive learner. The advantages to this, or disadvantages, sorry, are you do not have the fluidity, i.e. movements could become jerky. If you practice solo, just the front crawl arm action, when you finally get to swim, you're not going to be fluid at all because you haven't practiced it with the legs. It's not realistic either. In swimming, you don't just use your arms and front crawl. You use your whole body. Therefore, you're going to lose fluidity. It's going to be jerky, and it's not realistic. It is also time consuming to first of all practice the arm action, then potentially on its own practice the leg action and so on. So they are the advantages and disadvantages or uses of part practice. Part is all about isolating skills into subroutines. We talk about low organisational skills, serial skills, complex skills, okay, that you're going to have to be able to break down. This is the same as whole part, whole practice, okay, so the above advantages and disadvantages are exactly the same for whole part, whole practice, because again, it's about that part, that separating it or isolating into subroutines. Okay, whole practice, again, it is practicing a skill in its entirety, e.g. a golf swing. What classification of skill would this be good for? This is going to be good for high organisational skills, skills that cannot easily be split up into subroutines, okay. It's also going to be good for discrete skills, those skills with a clear beginning and end, such as a golf swing. Golf swing's really difficult to split up into subroutines, it's high organisation. It's a discrete skill, it's got clear beginning and end, and it's simple skill. Okay, there's not much decision making. Now I understand someone's thinking hitting a golf ball off the tee with a driver is difficult. In terms of complexity, you rock up to it and then you kind of aim and you hit it. You're not thinking about loads and loads of decision making taking place, so it can be classed as a simple skill. It's good for an autonomous learner, a learner that knows how the movement should feel, understands what they're doing. And this develops fluidity because you are practicing the skill as a whole. So you get used to the whole feel of the skill. So it's not jerky, it is fluid. And it's the most realistic because as a golf swing, you're practicing it in its whole entirety. Therefore, you're going to be doing that when it comes to performance. So therefore, it's really realistic. Disadvantages are you cannot isolate the weaknesses with whole practice because you are practicing the skill in its entirety. So if you have a weakness, you're not able to actually kind of work on that weakness because you're working as a whole. And then finally, progressive part practice. We've talked about isolating subroutines separately and progressively chaining them together. Advantages of this are for low organisation skills, serial skills, complex skills, cognitive and autonomous learner. So a triple jump beginner cognitive learner will definitely progressive part practice. You will isolate subroutines separately and then progressively chain them together. But so will an Olympic athlete. An Olympic athlete, triple jump, isn't just going to practice a triple jump as a whole all the time. They will practice parts of it. They will practice their run and their hop, and then they'll chain that together. They'll practice their step, chain it together, then finally their jump and chain it together. So it's good for both. And it increases confidence. Disadvantage, time consuming. So they are the characteristics and uses of the 4 different types of practice we're looking at today. Please ensure you have good notes on these, highlight key points, and making good questions. Okay, so I'll see you in lesson. Thank you.